going to be talking about the mask we wear, trading approval for authenticity. What does that mean? And so I'm going to start off kind of by asking you this, and you can write it in the chat or, if you want to just think about it, ponder it, right? Have you ever walked into a room and you put on this version of yourself that you thought that's what the people in there wanted, right? That's the version of you that they would like more. Or, have you ever downplayed the truth to maybe stay safe, to be accepted, or even sometimes when you think about, I don't want to rock the boat, right? So then you dim your light, you downplay who you are, what you stand for. And I just want you to kind of think through those questions, and definitely toss it in the chats. But I think to some extent or to some degree, we've all worn masks, right? Maybe it's at work or in our families, or even sometimes we wear masks like in ourselves, right? Or with ourselves, because sometimes we even try to hide who we are from ourselves, which is funny and ironic at the same time. But I think, you have to start asking, like, what is the cost? And we might gain approval, right? Maybe by ourselves, by our coworkers, by our friends, by our families. But I think that we lose connection to who we really are. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing, right? So we're going to talk about um, why we wear masks in the first place, right? What it's actually costing us. And then thinking about maybe trading that for presence, and thinking about what it means to be authentic, because I think that that's the most important thing, is authenticity. And it's a word that sometimes we throw around, but it's something that it's very meaningful when you really own that word in how you show up, how you think, how you talk, your presence, how you associate with other people. So I wanted us to define it, right? What does it mean? What does wearing a mask mean? And really simply, a mask is just a version of you that you put on, or a version of you that is present, so that maybe you can stay safe, or maybe you can be accepted, you can be more accepted. You might also wear it so that you're validated, like, okay, I'm part of them, right? Or I do this because that's how they do it. Or you might even wear a mask because you want to be in control, right? Maybe that's the type of mask that you're putting on. And the mask is not like, like, it's not literal mask that we wear, but it's usually somewhat of a defense, right? It might even be a way to survive, and it's something that you've picked up along the way as you've been going. And the mask they can all look different, right? And but then they could maybe look like you want to be an overachiever, so that's how you show up every single day, and that's the mask you wear. Or you're wearing the perfectionist mask, right? Everything has to be prim, it has to be proper, it has to be perfect. um, or you could be wearing the mask of like that strong person who never shows emotion, who doesn't cry, who is like almost like they'll describe you as maybe your heart is calloused, right? That could be the mask you wear. Or you could also even be sometimes a good mask, but it's not really. So you could maybe even feel like you're the peacemaker, and you never really say what you really feel, but that's the mask you're wearing, and you really want to maybe tell someone off lovingly, but you're like, no, I'm the peacemaker. I have to keep my mouth shut. I have to look good, feel good, always be supportive, even at the wrong time, right? So that's also something to think about. And then the happy person, so that version of you, even when you're breaking on the inside, right? Like things suck, and you just portray yourself as happy. I think maybe that's also a mask. And I would say that maybe before, like, those masks have been protecting you, right? But I really think that they're probably now limiting you, especially as you're on the path to growth. People love the versions of you that is imperfect, that is beautiful, that is messy, because then they can relate, right? They see themselves in you and are more likely to cling to your mission, your vision, whatever it is that you are trying to sell them on. And so I want to think through this kind of framework a little bit. I want us to think through how to actually take off the mask and show up as our real selves, even when it feels risky. You know why? Because you only live once. So live it mask free. I think the first one is you have to kind of name the mask you're wearing. So what are you doing, right? So I think awareness, when you become aware, then that's the beginning of freedom, like just a full life, right? So you could start today by maybe asking yourself, like, what part of me do I always edit to make other people feel comfortable? Like, what part of me do I change? What part of me do I like alter a little bit, even if I'm uncomfortable with that, right? You could even ask yourself, like, what role are you performing so that, people like you, so that you're accepted, so that you keep the peace? Like, who is that person, right? If you want to even think about it this week, write it down, call it out. But I think when you do that, right, you start to lose, like, that's the beginning of it losing its grip on you. So you're no longer the perfectionist because you don't have to be, right? So that's just something to think about. It's okay to give someone a hug, whatever it is, but write it down, call it out. That is the start. And you sometimes, I want to say it loud, say it proud, but you could even say it quietly, right? I've been wearing the mask of perfectionism, or being an overachiever, or always keeping a happy face even when things aren't right or going well. I think you name it, you own it, and then you live out whoever you are, whatever that looks like. I think secondly, I would say ask yourself what it's costing you, right? So the mask sometimes is protecting us, you and I, from rejection, right? But that mask is also blocking real connection. And so you have to ask yourself what's more important. That it will keep you safe, right? But it might also keep you small. And so maybe ask yourself, what am I not saying, right? Um, what version of myself have I hidden to stay liked, to stay accepted, to stay loved? And then so when you ask yourself that, then the opposite question is, would it even is there a realm of possibility that I can show up unapologetically me? And that looks like, unfiltered, unedited, in the social media world, like that just looks like free from everything, and they get to see the real you, right? You take off the mask, you take off the makeup, you take off whatever it is, right? Just metaphorically. But what does it look like to show up as the real you? I think if you sat down again and named the cost, like, what would you be willing to let go? um, you might have, it might be persons, it might be people, it might be place, it might be work, it might be an old version of you that you need to be like, okay, I'm done with this part of my life and I need to move on. You got to name it. And I think if you name it, then it becomes real, and then you can let it go. And then I would say start small. It's like, I think I know that I think I'm looking at a bare wall, and probably I should write start small, because start small means that you actually start, right? You don't have to like rip off the mask. You could just start small. It could start even like a simple conversation that you have today with a friend, a coworker, a family member, someone who's maybe been giving you a hard time and you haven't been able to tell them who you really are. You could start with that conversation and really say what you really mean, right? Or you can share something personal that you would normally hide. And please, no TMI, but like simple stuff, right? Like that takes you from just surface level to going a little bit deeper. And then, maybe so you let your not so perfectly put together self be seen. Again, I've learned that um, people do love. It's not that they accept the messy, right? But they understand that I've been there, I've done that, I've looked like that, right? And so it's okay if I show up just like that. The goal, again, is not to be raw because you want attention. Look at me. It's you have to think of it as real connection. So not attention, real connection. What would I gain in the process? I'd say I talked about kind of all the places that you could take your mask off: work, home, school, place of whatever it is, right? Online, wherever. Maybe you just like choose one space this week and just a little bit, right? Show your real self. Maybe have a conversation, turn on your camera and have a conversation for who knows who, but you have it, right? So here's what I want you to take this week, take into this week as you're thinking. You don't have to perform. You don't have to perform for anyone, but specifically, you don't have to be performed to be loved by anyone. You don't have to be, you don't need to pretend to be valuable, right? You know, you are valuable, you are worthy. Show up in that spirit, show up in that with that frame of mind. And maybe you might see someone on TV who is magnetic, and you think I have to be like that, and it's not true. You don't need to wear a mask to be magnetic to show your full self. Your authenticity is the magic, because who you are, who I am, we are unique beings, and it's rare. So how we think, how we show up, how we laugh, how we are there for others, all of those things, like how we think, how we produce, how we create, all of that unique combination, right, is rare. It's almost impossible to get that other than in you, right? So I would say if you showed up as that, as your authentic self, I think that would go so much farther. And whatever you have to say, right, it has power, because that realness is what builds trust. Again, I said that people love that vulnerability, that realness, and they are more likely to trust you, to link arms with you, to join in your cause, whatever it is. Because again, right, that freedom that you're bringing, that realness, it gives other people the permission to take off their own mask, right? Because they're like, okay, like she is real, she's the real deal. I don't have to act this way around her. I don't need to think this way, right? I can share my crazy ideas because they could be something really good, but I know that I'm in the presence of someone who's accepting, because he or she, is just who they are. They're real. So imagine if you did something to help you, but in the process, you're helping someone else, you're uplifting someone else. Like, how cool, how wonderful, how amazing will that be? So this week, as you're thinking, like, what does this mean? What am I thinking? And like, how can I apply this, right? I would say pick one mask that you've been wearing and just name it, right? Choose a space that you always show up in, and maybe think about how you can do it a little bit more authentically, right? It could be fearful and scary and all the things, but just imagine if you were a little bit more authentic, you would smile a little bit harder at the end of the day. And I would say maybe you could write this down on your phone or think about it or recite it in the morning, right? I don't need to perform. I just need to be present, right? I don't need to perform to fill in the blank. I don't need to perform to belong. I just need to be present. So something along those lines, you can craft it, you can change it, you can make it yours. But I would say think that, write that, read that, and that's how you show up. So as kind of like thinking through this and bringing it all together, right? When you take off whatever it is that you have on, right, you stop performing and you start connecting. And I think if you had to take one thing away from this, is that if you take off your mask, you give someone else the opportunity to take theirs off. And I think that's so powerful. And so this week, maybe we think about how we need to stop shape shifting and changing. This week, we need to stop looking for approval. We don't need all the yeses, right? This week, you show up just as you are, raw, beautiful, authentic, messy, loud, creative, opinionated, like whatever it is, right? You show up like that. And even like creative enough to come up with genius ideas that you've maybe been hiding because you didn't think they were good enough, right? So boldness, whatever it is that you need to show up as your true self, right? The biggest thing here is being true, being authentic, being present, being able to belong because of the real you. So that's just what I wanted to talk about today. I'd say think about what it means to take the mask off. Think about what it means to trust who you are, and to show up in that full authenticity. So, yes, let's go. Let's crush this week. And then we can go from there.